Hi pilgrims, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about albergues. Now, I don't know about you, but prior to walking the Camino, I had never stayed in a hostel, an albergue, or any type of situation like that in my life. I definitely stayed in low-end hotels, budget-friendly places, but staying in an albergue or a hostel is a truly unique experience, and I'm going to teach you everything that I know about it. And at the very end, I even have a video of when I was on the Camino in 2017 and I took a little tour. I did a video tour. So at the end of this video, I'm gonna attach that so you can get a little look at life inside of an albergue. Let's go ahead and get started. There are 6 types of albergues. They are all roughly the same, where you're going to find bunk beds. You're always going to have bunk beds, and you're always going to have bathing facilities. After that, they vary greatly. Sometimes you have kitchens. Sometimes you have washing facilities that include washers and dryers. Sometimes there's just a sink, and then there are lines that you hang your clothes out to dry. Sometimes there's not. There are albergues that are a little bit more upscale than others, but in general, they are for sleeping and bathing. You go in, you sleep, you bathe, you leave the next day. You typically only spend one night in an albergue. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna break down the different type of albergues, the 6 different types, how much they cost, what to expect when you get there, and a little bit about albergue culture. The first type of albergue we're going to talk about are municipal. These are the most common type that I stayed in. Primarily, I was staying in municipal albergues because they were easy to find using my guide, and they were definitely the least expensive, and it was kind of where everybody else that my little Camino family, that's where we all stayed. Now, I will say that I stayed in pretty much every kind that I'm going to talk about, except for hotels. Now, I'm not going to talk about hotels. They're not one of the 6 types of albergues. Hotels are available, definitely in the bigger cities you can find them, but I didn't stay in any hotels because I just didn't. I know they're out there, I know they're available, and I know some people prefer them, but it just wasn't for me. So municipal, these are locally owned and operated. They're definitely limited facilities here. They run between 5, 6, 7 euro a night. You don't make reservations for them. You just show up and you get a bed. Now, I walked the Camino when I was 47 years old, and there was every single age that you can think of walking the Camino. I spent a lot of time with 21-year-olds. I spent time with people my old age. I spent time with people older than me. I spent a considerable amount of time with a 13-year-old and her family. It was an amazing experience, but for whatever reason, I did not feel comfortable on a top bunk. So I always ask for a bottom bunk, and I got one every time. I would have been willing to sleep on a top bunk if that was the only one that was offered, but all you have to do is ask. Most of the time they will assign you a bunk. Sometimes they're like, okay, go find a bed. But most of the time I found that the bunks are numbered and you would get your bunk for the night. There is not always locked storage available, so your things are not going to be locked up somewhere. Now, I know some albergues do offer that, but I never used that. Everything that was important, my money, my passport, my credit cards, my identification, was always in my fanny pack, and that went with me everywhere. I even took it to the shower with me, and I would hang it on the hook. After I kind of got to know some people, I would ask them to watch it for me. We would kind of look out for each other's stuff. But after you've been traveling with the same group of people for several weeks, you start to know whose stuff belongs to which person that you're staying with. You can identify them by their shoes, their poles, their backpack, everything, because everybody's kind of wearing the same clothes over and over again. So municipal. The next one that I stayed in only once was a parish albergue. Now, these are either monasteries or they're convents. So a parish can be owned by a local diocese and run by them. It could also be owned by monks, or it can also be owned by nuns. The particular one that I stayed in was owned by nuns. These are different than a municipal because they have more of a religious theme. So you're likely to participate in a communal meal. There's a blessing. There's often a church service. You're going to be expected to help out with the evening chores, setting tables, clearing off tables. They cost about the same. They're €5, €7 a night, and then some of them are donativo. You make a donation when you go in, and for the most part you're expected to make a donation. They don't put a set price on it, so you want to give them whatever you're normally going to be paying for an albergue. These are everywhere, and they're a really nice experience, especially the pilgrim meal. Now, the pilgrim meal is something that is scheduled. You have to be on time. You have to be willing to, participate with the vibe and the theme of the albergue. Next, there are association albergues. These are albergues that are owned and run by the local Spanish. Sometimes local authorities run them also. They're very well equipped. They're well staffed. They're just a little bit nicer than municipal albergues. They cost just a little bit more, maybe €10, maybe €12, sometimes even €15, but that's once you get closer to Santiago, the price of the albergues start to go up a little bit. And then after that, you have two different levels of private albergues. Some of them are called red albergues, and then there's another one that is a different type. They're just run by different associations. They are great choices. You're going to find them all in your guidebook. They're all listed here. I definitely stayed in both of these. They are more expensive, 10, 15, €20. The most expensive euro that I stayed in was in Santiago itself. It was €25 a night, and it was an albergue called The Last Stamp, for those of you that have stayed there. And the reason why it was so expensive is because I happened to arrive in Santiago during the festival of St. James. It was the Feast of St. James, July 25th. I think I arrived on the 23rd, and then they have a huge festival in the city on the 25th, which was more amazing than I can describe in one video. So if you can plan your Camino around anything, the Feast of St. James, it's worth it to be in Santiago on that day, but you're gonna pay a little bit more for an albergue. So in general, you're going to pay between €5 and then all the way up to €25 for some of the private ones. Now, when you get to Sarria, you're going to notice there's a lot more traffic on the Camino, because Sarria is the traditional 100-kilometer starting point for pilgrims that are looking just to walk that last 100 kilometers to get to Santiago and get their credential. So if you walk the last 100K, and you present your pilgrim's passport in Santiago, you will get a pilgrim's credential. So a lot of people, that have been walking since Saint-Jean, or even people that have started in Paris, they have a big issue with these pilgrims. They call them peregrinos because they're just there to do the last 100K. I will tell you from my own experience, it was a little shocking to see such fresh pilgrims in Sarria. I remember seeing groups of people with really clean clothes and shoes. I remember my friend Jules and I saw a girl wearing mascara, and we were so flabbergasted and just, what? She has makeup on, but it's a different experience. We met a lady who had just started the Camino in Sarria, and for her it was pure magic, and so we caught a little bit of that Camino magic through her eyes because she had just started and we'd been doing this for weeks. So let's talk a little bit about what to expect in an albergue. I'm just going to give you just from my personal experience. First of all, shoes stay outside. So be prepared that your shoes will stay on a shelf. They'll go into a little storage area for a million reasons. I'm sure you can understand. Your shoes that you've been walking that trail with all day are not going to go inside the albergue. Poles are often outside if you bring walking poles with you. And believe it or not, they don't go missing. You stay with these people for weeks, and you're not going to have the type of people that would steal your stuff. Besides, everybody knows what's your stuff anyway. There are shared bathrooms in most of them. The first time you have to share a bathroom with a stranger, it's awkward, but after that first time, you get over it immediately. We all grew up with brothers and sisters. We've all shared bathrooms. It's really not that big of a deal. Everybody's very respectful and polite. So sometimes the toilet facilities are separate from the showers. Sometimes they're all together, but you will definitely end up taking a shower next to somebody who's taking a shower that may or may not be the opposite sex. You will go to the bathroom in a stall next to somebody. You will get used to it. If this is very difficult for you, stay in a hotel, because it's just part of the Camino. Some albergues have separate facilities for men and women, but most of them do not. They are shared facilities. Albergues can get a little bit noisy. Anytime you have a big group of people, whether it's 20 or 200, it can get a little bit loud. So the way that I got over that is, number one, I took a little something to help me sleep at night. I took ZzzQuil. I brought little ZzzQuil tabs with me, and when I ran out, I went to the pharmacia and I got something that was kind of like ZzzQuil, and oh my gosh, I slept like a baby every night. Also, I have a little app on my phone. It's a little white noise app. And I would put my headphones in and I would play that white noise at night, and I did not hear a thing. There are some albergues that you can get by with the noise, but for me, I had my whole sleep routine. You're exhausted anyway, so sleeping is not a big deal. It is a little bit awkward getting used to sleeping with a whole bunch of strangers, but usually you're so exhausted you just fall asleep anyway. The group that I was traveling with, we often would all stay together. Our bunks would be together. Sometimes we'd have a whole room, and you kind of got comfortable sleeping with your same group, your little Camino family, after a while. There is a curfew for albergues, especially the Municipal. It could be anywhere from 9:30 to 10:30, and they lock the doors. So you have to be very mindful of your curfew. When we got to Pamplona, Pamplona is a city that likes to have fun. They like to party. And a lot of pilgrims that I started walking with in Saint Jean, by the time we got to Pamplona, they were completely exhausted. I believe this is on day 4. By the time I got to Pamplona, my body was shredded. My feet were in terrible shape. I was in so much pain. It was the initial shock. I hadn't even been walking the Camino a week, and I was hurting. So a lot of people tapped out. They told me my Camino is going to end here. I may take buses, I may take transportation, but I can't do this. I never once thought about tapping out. I was in it for the long haul. So if you get to Pamplona and you feel like you want to party, maybe take a day or two there. You can stay in the albergues for sometimes 2 or 3 days if you want to. But know that there's a curfew. If you don't want a curfew, stay someplace that doesn't have a curfew. They also often have a must leave by time. I don't know what that is because I left very early in the morning. It may be between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. that you have to be out of the albergue. Just check when you go there. I'm an early riser. I'm one of those people that got up at 5 a.m. to leave because I like to get a head start. I never knew how long it was going to take me to get to the end of my stage. I was always worried about not being able to get a bed. I always got a bed. And I like to walk when it was cool. In the morning, I love to watch the sun come up and hear the roosters. And I was also with a group of people that like to get out early. So I was an early riser. I love to get out and get going. These albergues also have kitchens, and there's a lot of communal cooking going on. A lot of pasta, a lot of rice. It's very easy to put together a meal and cook in the kitchen, but know that you're gonna have to share the kitchen. You're gonna have to clean up after yourself, and you're gonna have to share everything. But that's part of what it's like being on the Camino. So now let's take a look at a tour that I did of an albergue in Santiago. Hey everybody, how are you? I hope you're doing okay. I just made it to my very last albergue of the Camino, and this is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, but I just haven't been able to, so I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna give you a tour of an albergue so you know what this is like. This one is very typical. So there are going to be people sleeping in the room where I'm going to go, so I'm not going to be talking, and there are going to be people looking at me while I'm doing this, but you know what, I don't really care. You got to see this. So let's start with the yard down here. This is what a typical, well, they call it the garden, looks like. Laundry, bicycles, and then this is a little patio. All the shoes are kept outside because, you know, gross. And lots of little tables and places to hang out. So in here, this is a very typical kitchen. Hola. People getting checked in. This is actually kind of a nice albergue compared to what I'm used to. Lots of little places to hang out, computer, and then this is a little entryway. So we are going to very quietly walk upstairs so that you can see what the sleeping quarters look like. I'm gonna just walk in there quietly, show you my bed, walk out, show you the co-ed bathroom, and then that will be our tour. So. That's where everybody sleeps. Okay, this is the bathroom. It's upstairs. So maybe we'll get lucky and there'll be like a naked person up there. So that would be great. Okay, here's the bathroom. Okay, looks like it's pretty much empty. Oh wow, the bell's ringing us to church. Look at the views from the bathroom. So this is a very typical albergue. Nice little shower, nice little bathroom. So that's basically it. It's my last night in Santiago. Literally my last night as a pilgrim. And I'll be getting to London tomorrow. So thanks. Bye. So there you have it. That's a albergue. That one was a little bit nice, but you know, it's typical also. So just know that staying in the albergues is going to be one of the best parts about the Camino, because if you want to talk about getting out of your comfort zone, you will get out of your comfort zone in an albergue. You will remember it like it was yesterday. Enjoy it, because you'll never get an opportunity like that again to stay in a different albergue every night. For me, it was 32 nights, 32 albergues. So as always, please ask me questions, and buen camino, pilgrims.